Russia affirms its principled stand in supporting a peaceful solution in Syria and welcomes Washington's step to include Jabhat al-Nusra on the list of terrorist organizations. Our armed forces destroy the hideouts of terrorist groups and crush scores of them in Damascus suburbs and Homs. Anti-Morsi demonstrators escalate their protest as the Egyptian army tightens its security measures around the presidential palace. Good afternoon and welcome to our news for today. An official military source has denied that terrorist groups had entered the power station in Aleppo suburbs. The source affirmed that the cause behind the power cutoff in the city's districts and neighborhoods is the stoppage of gas pumping from the gas station that was the target of the armed terrorist group's attack. In Damascus, an explosive device was detonated by terrorists in a car near the Red Crescent Center behind Dar'a bus station in al-Zahira neighborhood, killing the driver and causing material damage on the site of the explosion. In Damascus suburbs, an army unit has eliminated al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group in al-Diyabiya that had assaulted citizens and sabotaged public and private properties. Among the terrorists, Khalil Ali, nicknamed Abu Ala al-Hudaji, leader of the so-called al-Hawadij group, was identified. In Zamalka, another army unit pursued a terrorist group also belonging to Qaeda organization in eastern Ghouta, killing and wounding its members and confiscating their weapons. Army units also clashed with terrorists in a number of Homs neighborhoods, killing 3 armed men and injuring others in Bab al-Turkman neighborhood near At-Tahiyya Mosque. In Homs suburbs, clash erupted between our armed forces and armed terrorist group in Lassoun village. 18 terrorists were killed and several others were wounded. The army intercepted a terrorist group in As-Sultaniya district, killing and injuring its members. In Jandar farms, an army unit also destroyed a number of terrorist groups' hideouts, inflicting on their members heavy losses. The authorities, meanwhile, thwarted an infiltration attempt by gunmen from Lebanon to Idlin, Al-Arida and Tal al-Hawadij in Tal Kalakh suburbs, scoring direct hits among the terrorists who had opened their machine gun fire at the border guard in the aforementioned sites. On the other hand, a high-ranking Jordanian security source has declared that the security forces in Jordan arrested at dawn today an armed group that belonged to the Salafi jihadi trend while it was on its way to Syria. U.S. officials have said that the U.S. administration has decided to include Jabhat al-Nusra, which is affiliated to al-Qaeda organization, on the list of the terrorist organizations. The officials have been quoted as saying that according to this step, all the funds and assets of Jabhat al-Nusra will be frozen in the USA and the bodies that are under U.S. judicial jurisdictions. The step would also prevent U.S. citizens from providing this terrorist group with financial support. The officials who had requested to remain unidentified said the U.S. administration had planned to announce this officially this week, but decided to postpone the announcement until the Syrian opposition leaders became reassured that the step was not directed against them. On its part, Russia welcomed the American step. The Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gatilov said it indicated that Washington admitted the presence of terrorist threats against Syria. A senior official at the American State Department has announced that U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will meet today in the Irish capital, Dublin, her Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov and the international envoy to Syria, al-Akhdar al-Ibrahimi, to discuss the situation in Syria. The French news agency quoted the official as saying that Clinton, who is currently on a tour of Europe, has accepted al-Ibrahimi's call for a tripartite meeting on Syria that includes Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. Iraqi President Jalal Talibani has expressed his country's willingness to consolidate bilateral relations with Syria and to expand cooperation with it in all fields in service of the two peoples. In a statement posted on the site of the Presidency of the Republic of Iraq today, the announcement came while President Talibani was receiving the credentials of the new Syrian ambassador to Iraq, Sattam Jad'an al-Dandah. The statement quoted Talibani as saying that Syria has a special status in the hearts of the Iraqis, affirming the importance of the relations between the two peoples and expressing his willingness to support the efforts of the Syrian ambassador for the success of the tasks of his work in Iraq. The Egyptian military installed barbed wire barricades and placed armored tanks outside the presidential palace in Cairo today after a night of deadly protests. 5 people were killed in the street battles as opponents of President Mohammed Morsi and his supporters clashed yesterday night and today morning during rival demonstrations sparked by Morsi's decision last month to expand his powers. Opponents of Morsi had earlier said that more protesters would arrive in the afternoon. There was a brief spate of stone throwing mid-morning today, but the scene had otherwise been calm for hours. Clashes and sniping were renewed in Tripoli, north of Lebanon today, after a relative calm that prevailed in the morning. The Lebanese national news agency said that Hussein Ali Abeido was injured today morning by sniping gunfire that took place in the city's access, raising the total to 61 injured and 6 killed as a result of 2 days of fighting. The international highway that links Tripoli with al-Badawi area and the Syrian border also witnessed sniping and an exchange of gunfire. The clashes were heated last night in all crossings as an exchange of gunfire took place using light and medium weapons as well as rocket shells, some of which hit the center of the city, creating a state of fear among the residents as the Lebanese army retaliated by gunfire and carried out raids to arrest the violators. On the other hand, Russian Foreign Ministry said today that Moscow is concerned over the new escalation of the situation in Lebanon during the past few days, expressing support for any measures taken by Lebanon to prevent a further escalation of violence. As international reactions continued opposing the decision taken by the Israeli occupation to establish new 6,000 settlements in occupied Jerusalem and the West Bank, following the General Assembly's recognition of Palestine as a non-member observer. The Brazilian Foreign Ministry summoned the ambassador of the Zionist entity, asserting that the announcement of the resumption of building settlements kills any possibility of establishing peace in the region. Brazil has voted in favor of the UN Security Council resolution which condemns the policy of settlement in the occupied Palestinian land. Meanwhile, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the Palestinian territories, Richard Falk, said that the Israeli aggression on Gaza Strip, which targeted civilians, was deliberate and needs an investigation. With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more news about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. And now over to latest business and market news with Khalid Saqabani after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The People's Assembly has approved the draft law on granting the Ministry of Finance a loan from the Central Bank of Syria. This will pay off the debt of the General Cotton Organization. The loan will also repay the debt in favor of the textile industries, and by this it became a law. The Minister of Finance said that the new law is a move in the right direction and it will resolve the financial entanglements between the stakeholders, and it will also give the cotton company the funds that it needs to carry on the production operations. The minister also explained that the reason behind the losses that have been registered in most of the public companies is due to the corruption and the lack of a real control system. The governor of the Central Bank of Syria announced that the bank is ready to finance the entire demand for foreign exchange to finance the import operations that were made by the banks, adding that this will be done according to the official exchange rates to ensure the stability of the commodity prices in the markets. The bank's chairman also announced that the bank can meet all the business needs of foreign exchange so long as this is being used to make import payments. His announcement came during a meeting he held last night with the bank managers. The chairman added that this will help the funding according to the official rates, as the bank is also intervening in the exchange markets, and by this it is preserving the stability. The general manager of mills announced that there is no flour shortage, adding that the bread and the wheat supplies are sufficient to cover our needs. The director added that the long lines in front of the bakeries that people have been witnessing during the past few days is due to the production problems in some other bakeries in the Damascus area, and this put pressure on the others that are now fully operational. He also noted that the bread crisis is a term being used only by the media. He also announced that the company is going to import 40,000 tons of flour during the next 12 days, noting that the company's next general plan includes grinding 3 million tons to produce 2.2 million tons of flour. The manager of the Tartus port announced that the maritime movement is good, as 11 ships are docked at the port today, unloading their payloads that include building equipment, foodstuff, and fertilizers, noting that there are also 5 ships waiting to unload cars and soy. Oil traded near its lowest price in New York in a week, as the investors are optimistic and the U.S. lawmakers are still struggling to reach an agreement regarding the new budget plan. The American stocks advanced following a 2-day decline in the Standard & Poor's 500 index amid optimism that a budget agreement will be reached. The European stocks also advanced, extending an 18-month high. In related news, the Japanese stocks went up, with the Nikkei index reaching a 7-month high. Gold dropped for a third day to trade near a 1-month low as a stronger dollar damped the demand for the commodities, overshadowing the highest ever holdings backed by bullion. The euro is near a 7-week high against the dollar as the European Central Bank made some new policy decisions, and investors are waiting for a new economic data that may confirm the speculation that the region is in a recession. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our news bulletin for today. Thank you for joining us.